Jake Stuart back with the National Sports Media Association. Today, I'm joined with Florida Sportswriter of the Year, Omar Kelly. Omar, thank you so much for coming on today.
It's my pleasure.
I wanted to start off and just ask you, what brought you into the industry way back when?
I can't even believe it's been a while since I've told this story, considering I'm getting old now in the industry. But it was my brother who I was in elementary school and he was in junior high, and they had a junior high newspaper, and I'm going to keep this story short. And I saw how he assembled his junior high newspaper, and our teacher in my elementary school gave us an assignment, and she said, hey, make something that represents you and your family. And I saw what my brother was doing with the computer about how he was assembling a newspaper for his junior high. And right. I said, let me do this. And I made a Kelly Bugle. And I put little stories about my family. I put little fake car advertisements. I stole a Peanuts comic strip and basically made a newspaper, and produced it as my project. They were so pleased with it that they said, hey, you did this all on your own for a homework assignment. How about you make a newspaper for the school? So I made a newspaper for the school. And at that time, we did it in the computer lab, and I had my whole staff of people, and we didn't know what kind of content we could put in it. So what we did was we basically made a gossip rag about who had a crush on who in high school. And somehow the teachers allowed us to produce this newspaper. And when it printed, oh my God, was everybody talking about it. And from that moment, I saw the power of journalism and the power of the written word, and was hooked and infatuated with it ever since. I started out in news and started out working for the Miami Herald in their neighbors department. But all the while, I love sports. I grew up working at the Dolphin Stadium for Marlins games, Dolphins games. And I always want to be around sports. So I said, hey, let me aspire to become a sports reporter. And I did that. It took me a while. I had to drop out of school to do a spring internship with the Palm Beach Post to actually get my big break. But eventually I kicked the door down and got into the clubhouse.
Well, that's an awesome story. And clearly you've worked hard to get where you are. You've covered everyone from the Miami Hurricanes to the Miami Heat, even some legislature in Florida as well. I wanted to ask you, what does this award specifically mean to you?
I have a good following, good fan base, but recognition is just not something that I usually get. Or over the course of my career, I don't submit for anything. I just have no interest in it. And really I've just gotten, I'm not somebody who seeks attention or recognition or competition. I just put my head down and work. So I have no idea who nominated me or how I got nominated, but it's probably the second time in my career that somebody has recognized me and honored me for the work that I've put in. And so it means a lot to me.
I'm sure it does. And I wanted to ask you too, obviously you've covered a wide array of events. What would you say is one that maybe stands out to you, whether it's, a favorite one or something that really meant a lot to you?
I would probably start with, I covered Florida State and UM when they were making national championship runs. It's been a long while since then. I would say the national championship game that the University of Miami lost to Ohio State in very controversial fashion, that always will stand out to me. The moment seeing Ken Dorsey sobbing on the couch after that loss in tears, everybody in that locker room crying like a baby over the overtime loss. When people thought that they were one of the best teams of all time. That absolutely stands out to me. My experience I covered the Heat for one season. I was a young rookie Cub reporter learning behind Ira Winderman, and Pat Riley hazed me just about every day and constantly reminded me that I need to, read his book and learn, he always hinted that I suffered from the disease of me. And he would just cite his book so much that it just forced me to read it to figure out what he was talking about and understand all the lessons that he was trying to teach me, because Pat Riley at that time coached the media as well. So
Right.
that was one of my memorable experiences. Memorable experiences is and really the impact that you have as a college reporter. I remember with spending time with Frank Gore after the Peach Bowl, and I believe it's 2014, with him and his mother after midnight, the talking to him, encouraging him. They didn't know what to do, whether he should stay or leave, and I basically broke it down to Frank. I broke all the factors down for Frank. Frank knew I cared about him, knew that I wrote the first feature on Frank Gore ever when he was an unknown freshman, and we had been close ever since. And Frank knew I cared about him, and I basically told him, you can't come back here. You can't take the risk with a mother on dialysis of not ever getting a chance to cash in on your NFL ability and career. And he went for it, and look at Frank now. He's a Hall of Fame player.
Yep. Sure is. Wow. It's an awesome story. But I wanted to ask you too.
Got a lot of those over the course of my career.
Oh, actually. Yeah. Especially working at a school as well known as Miami, I'm sure all the time. Well, I wanted to ask you too, obviously the landscape of the sports media business has changed over the course of the last few years with COVID-19 coming in. How much has your work changed, would you say, both as a reporter and as a writer too?
Drastically. I always prided myself on the one-on-one relationships that you develop with players. If you cannot be in the locker room, you cannot develop one-on-one relationships. That's very difficult to do because it's a very controlled media setting that they're creating. You get 5 minutes on Zoom, you get maybe 5 minutes at a podium, and that's really your exposure to a player. The way that I've always worked is I develop relationships with them, and they realize they get to the point where they can trust me. And that's hard to do in this environment. And we've been now undergoing this for, I think this is probably I've already done 2 seasons under COVID. This is heading into our 3rd. So the landscape of media coverage and what we do has drastically changed, and you just got to find a way around it.
Well, you spoke already about, I guess, your tenacity and your kind of versatility as a sports writer and just getting into the industry. I wanted to kind of know too, is the last follow-up question is, what advice do you have, maybe aside from those 2, that you'd offer to younger sports writers?
Funny you asked that question, because I've given lectures at my school, Florida A&M, about this. And this was a long time ago because the industry has changed drastically. Back when I was going to school, you had to choose a lane. You had to choose radio.
Right.
You had to choose broadcasts. You had to choose print. And in print, you had to choose magazine or newspaper. I did it all at that time. And it wasn't necessarily supported or encouraged. I even took photography. I wanted to learn every aspect of journalism. I felt like that was important for me. And lo and behold, what we've seen throughout the years is that now as a journalist, you have to do it all. You have to be it all. We started with doing blogs. Then it moved to doing videos. Then it moved to, I have to shoot sometimes my own pictures on my iPhone. I always shoot my own video. Right. I sometimes edit my own video. I have to do and am doing my own podcasts. I've had my own show for 7 years, and I'm the producer of that show. So one, don't put limits on yourself. Don't allow anybody else to put limits on yourself. Create a vision for yourself and move towards that vision. But more importantly, learn everything. absolutely every single thing that you could possibly learn, that school can teach you. Learn it all, because you never know when it's going to apply to what you're doing or who you're working for.
Right. I think that's fantastic advice, especially, you at a time when you were supposed to pick your path, decided I'll do everything. Why not? And it sure helped you today. And, it helped you get this award as Florida Sportswriter of the Year. And so congratulations to you, Omar. And thank you again for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem. Thank you for having me, and definitely thank you for the award.